Let me tell you some unpopular stories which changed the world without people even knowing about them. Here it goes. Story 1. The night the world almost ended. It was just past midnight in September 1983. Inside a dimly lit Soviet bunker, screens suddenly began flashing red. Alarmed screamed. The system was clear: the United States had launched nuclear missiles. At the center of the room stood a quiet, unremarkable officer, Stanislav Petrov. He had seconds to act. Protocol said, report immediately. Report meant retaliation. Retaliation meant the end of the world as we know it. Petrov stared at the screen. 5 missiles detected. Not hundreds. Not thousands. Just 5. Something didn't feel right. The room buzzed with urgency. His colleagues waited. The system insisted it was real. But Petrov leaned back and whispered to himself. This doesn't make sense. If he was wrong, his country would be destroyed. If he was right, he would be disobeying direct orders. He picked up the phone. And then, he didn't follow protocol. He reported it as a false alarm. Minutes passed like hours. No explosions. No impact. No war. The system had malfunctioned. That night, one man's doubt outweighed an entire machine built for certainty. And because of that hesitation, millions of people woke up the next morning, completely unaware that they were even in danger. Story 2. The doctor nobody listened to. In a crowded hospital in 1840s Vienna, something terrifying was happening. Women were coming in to give birth, and leaving in coffins. The death rate was horrifying. Doctors blamed everything: bad air, weak bodies, even fate. But one doctor couldn't ignore a pattern. His name was Ignaz Semmelweis. He noticed that doctors often moved directly from autopsies to the delivery room, without washing their hands. So he tried something simple. He asked them to wash their hands with a chlorine solution before assisting births. Almost immediately, deaths dropped. Dramatically. It should have been a breakthrough. Instead, it became a scandal. Other doctors were offended. Are you saying we are the problem? They mocked him. Rejected him. Pushed him out. Semmelweis grew frustrated, desperate to be heard. But the world wasn't ready to accept that something invisible could kill. Years later, after his death, science caught up. Germs were real. Hygiene became essential. And the idea he was ridiculed for became one of the most important medical practices in human history. He never got to see it. Story 3. The girl who came before the icon. A crowded bus rolled through Alabama in 1955. Segregation wasn't just a rule, it was a system people lived under every day. In one of the seats sat a 15-year-old girl, Claudette Colvin. When the bus filled up, the driver looked back and ordered her to stand. She didn't move. He shouted again. Still, she stayed seated. Passengers stared. Tension filled the air. Finally, the police were called. They dragged her off the bus. As they pulled her away, she later said she felt something strange. It felt like history had me glued to that seat. She was arrested. Alone. Scared. But her act of defiance didn't make headlines. Civil rights leaders made a difficult decision. They felt she wasn't the right face for a movement. So her story faded into the background. But not completely. Her case quietly became part of the legal battle that would later dismantle bus segregation. Months later, another woman, Rosa Parks, did the same thing. And this time, the world paid attention. But before the spotlight, there was Claudette. Story 4. The invention that was given away for free. In the late 1950s, car accidents were often fatal. Seatbelts existed, but they were uncomfortable, ineffective, and people didn't trust them. Then a Swedish engineer came up with a new design. His name was Nils Bohlin. It was simple, a 3-point seatbelt that secured both the chest and the waist. Stronger. Safer. Easy to use. It worked. Really well. Now came the decision that would define his legacy. The company he worked for could have locked it behind patents. Charged every manufacturer. Made billions. Instead, they did something almost unheard of. They opened the design, for free. No lawsuits. No restrictions. Just one idea, spreading across the world. Today, that simple design has saved millions of lives. And most people buckle up every day, without ever knowing the name of the man who made it possible. Story 5. The forest that grew from one man's habit. On a lonely sandbar in the middle of the Brahmaputra River, there was nothing. No trees. No shade. No life. Just dry, empty land. One day, a young man walked onto that land carrying a few saplings. His name was Jadav Payeng. He planted them. Then he came back the next day, and planted more. There was no plan. No funding. No audience. Days turned into years. Years into decades. People barely noticed. But slowly, quietly, something began to change. The land started breathing again. Trees grew tall. Birds returned. Animals followed. Today, that once empty sandbar is a lush forest, home to elephants, deer, and countless species. All because one man refused to stop. When asked why he did it, his answer was simple. The land was empty, so I filled it. Final thought, not every story that changes the world is loud. Some happen in silence. Some are ignored. Some are even rejected at first. But they all begin the same way. With one person doing something that doesn't make sense to everyone else. And somehow, that's exactly what the world needed.